Welcome to the episode of the Tower 26B Race Podcast. I'm Jim Linsky. Here once comes Coach Gerry Rodriguez. Hey, Coach, how you doing, buddy?
I'm good, buddy. How are you?
You know what? So we've been doing this podcast since 2016. That's, let's see, 16 to 17. That's 1 year. 17. So that's, what is that? Seven years. 7 years we've been doing this podcast. Jack Fabian's the swim surgeon, Jack Fabian. Dr. Jack Fabian's with us as well. Jack, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well. Thanks, Jim.
I'll continue my thought here after I say hello to you. I don't want to disregard you.
Please.
Both Andrew and Emily are on assignment. You know, in the news, they say somebody's not in. Gail King's not here. She's on assignment. Andrew's on assignment. Emily's on assignment. So it's just three of us here. It's a very intimate atmosphere. But so we've been doing this show for 7 years, Jer, and it's right now currently, I know this show's evergreen. It lives forever on the shelf. You can always pull it out, listen to it, say, hey, I got something out of that. But that being said, it's May 23rd. We're starting our open water swims tomorrow, which is May 24th over at Santa Monica, Tower 26 in Santa Monica. I've never seen you this giddy getting ready for the swims that start tomorrow. You're an excited guy. 7 years, I haven't seen you this giddy.
Well, those swims have been going on for what, 13 or 14 years, right?
Yeah, I'm saying leading into it, you're just like, oh yeah, another day, another workout, another open water beach. You're just like over the moon, right? You can't wait to see everybody at the beach tomorrow.
Well, tomorrow, Coach Chris Georges and myself and Sabina, I'll talk to her later on. I mean, we're making some changes to this coming season and a little different, some different parameters and guidelines. So rather than going through, Jack, you'd appreciate this, rather than going through these 6-week cycles that we did in our beach program, we're going to go through 3-week cycles, more similar to what we do in our pool sessions. And I think that's going to work quite a bit better for this year. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a good season.
How crucial is it that athletes, triathletes, swimmers in general, don't just do pool swims in leading up to their event, and they actually get out there and they swim in the open water and they practice their skills and all those tools they build on the pool? How crucial is it that they get out there and they put the pen to paper in that real world environment like we're going to do tomorrow?
Would you have the NASCAR racer not training on a racetrack?
You are good. You're on today. I'm telling you, you're on.
Well, I mean, you know, you play professional hockey. Did you go practice at the arenas if you were going to where you were going to have
put the pen to paper, baby? That's
absolutely. So it's critical. I mean, you know, event specificity and training preparation. Yes, 100% needed.
100% needed. Coach Jack, Dr. Jack, what's new in your world? Let's talk to you and let's give you a little. Let's spitball a little bit, warm me up so we can get into the meat of the episode, which we'll get to in a second. How are you doing? What's new in your life since you've been last on the show?
Well, just on a personal level, we have 2 new dogs. My older dog passed away, and then I lost my mind and got 2 puppies. And so I've been just working a lot with them. They're 2 bird dogs, and they are very energetic. So
that is not triathlon or swim related. That is
swimming,
sleep deprived. So we look forward to digging into you in this episode. We're going to talk about swim technology, some new things that are coming along in swimming and in endurance sports. So we're looking forward to getting the meat of that episode. Jerry, something's on your mind. Something's on your mind. I can see you light up like that.
Absolutely. How about a little reminder for the audience about Jack's credentials, since it's been a while since he's been on?
Jack, brag about yourself a little bit.
Which is very hard for Jack to do. So you might have to ask specific questions to actually get things out of him.
Jack, how many national teams did you coach? How many world champions have you coached in your life?
So I was a national team coach for 9 different times, and I was a world championship coach once, but I was also a Pan American Games head coach, and these are for open water in USA Swimming. But I've coached for several other countries too at different FINA events. So I've gotten some good,
you've been around the block
on an international level and national level, but now I'm retired from coaching big groups, and I just work with you guys and do my sort of online coaching and run after my puppies.
That's it. It's all about the puppies, baby. So yeah, you do all of our swim video analysis. You do a lot of interaction on our swim subscription program. You're a vital component of our 2 p.m. call every week. So we always turn to you for education, kind of that swim surgeon, if you will, side of things. So thanks for joining us here. Real quick, Jerry, I was just looking at the stats from Libsyn, from our podcast provider. Do you know, we always go over the countries, but USA is always our #1 downloads. But we got there are some countries that are hot on the heels of the United States. We're getting some international competition here. Canada, UK, Australia, they're coming up on us pretty quick. So I don't know what's going on with US, or these countries are just catching fire and finding the Tower 26 podcast. What's going on here? Have you had some interviews over in Australia, UK, Canada? What's going on? Why are they hot on our heels all of a sudden?
I don't know. Well, interestingly, I did receive a singular text from somebody in the UK, somebody in Australia, fairly prominent person in the swimming community. And I've also been corresponding with a number of people in the UK, but I don't know if that would have anything to do with, those are big countries in triathlon, especially the UK. I mean, they have, I believe, the most Olympic medals in the sport of triathlon. So maybe our podcast's been getting some more attention.
There you go.
Because the content is, regarding specifically swimming, it's first class triathlon swimming content.
That's it. It has the best host. So, hey, so what are we gonna talk about this episode, Jack? Why are you here? And I know you and Rodriguez have been doing some testing. I'm just gonna take a nap over here while you guys take away the rest of the show. What are we talking about here?
No, it'd be actually good for you not to nap and just kind of chime in because, well, Gerry knows that
Hang on, Gerry, Jack, do you think I could really just sit here and take a nap? This is my time to shine, this podcast. So this is the only time I get to talk. The rest of the time I'm inside yelling at kids.
I take people very literally sometimes,
I can tell, yeah.
But it's, I do, like, I've always experimented a lot with technology, and then I've talked with Gerry quite a bit about it. So I have a personal interest in trying to find scientific ways to help people improve
So
their
what's
swimming.
the deal? You tested several different products that are designed to help people swim better, that are on the market right now. Is that what we're talking about?
So I've personally tested 3 of the 4 that I chose to talk about. And I'm a subscriber to 2 of them. I use them regularly in my own swimming, but also with people that I coach. And then the 3rd one, I actually, we published a paper using it. So that was the Train Sense paddle. So
let's get
I
right into it.
I have some familiarity with these products, and they're out there. And
and Jack, so before we let you cut loose in this, what is your science background so we can add some foundation?
Sure. So it's in the life sciences. I'm a molecular biologist. I have a PhD in molecular biology. So, I understand science and I like to read it, but I'm not a sports scientist. Let's put it that way.
Right.
Kind of amateur sports scientist here.
You're deeper.
Yeah, but you're very data driven, so that you're the perfect guy to do this, and you have a tremendous amount of experience as a coach. Obviously, many years now, 20-something years coaching, and you've been swimming for majority of your life.
That's something I can really, but both as a coach and a swimmer, I think that's kind of where I can really contribute, because I don't know, sometimes it's kind of hard to merge the sports science into practical applications. And so I kind of feel like I know what you can do with large groups where it's much harder to kind of employ these things. When certainly working with professional swimmers, you have a lot more flexibility to kind of work these things in and better staff. But I've coached age group, college, and international open water professional swimmers. So
beautiful. So we want to get right into the first product that you tested and how that could benefit or not benefit our swimmers.
Yes, and it's okay to share screens.
Share the screen. We are live on Facebook Live for all you guys. If you're not on Facebook Live, you listen to this after the fact. This will be posted on YouTube as well, so you can look at what Jack's getting into here and sharing the screen on. So we'll try to remember through it
to talk a little bit about each. But these are 4 of the products. This here is called the Smart Paddle, and you kind of strap it on, and it senses pressure, and it really senses pressure in like a 10 by 10 centimeter square in your palm.
And Jack, for those of us who are listening in that are not seeing this, what is the size of the device approximately?
So I'm trying to think of something you could relate it to. It's probably
about the size of your palm. You say about the size of your palm. I would
It's
say.
close to the size
Yeah.
of your palm, and then it fits in on your fingers, doesn't quite cover all 4 fingers, and it loops through your middle finger.
So it's called the smart paddle.
It's called the smart paddle.
All right, beautiful.
This
It's on the
second-
fingers, but not on the palm at all. Okay.
but it senses the pressure on your palm. That's kind of how it makes its force calculations. So it's
Got
a
it.
pretty clever device from a Finnish company. I mean, it's something, as I was talking about, that, you know, we in cycling and running, it's pretty easy to measure power. Swimming, not so easy. And there have been devices in the past, I'll mention, that we've been able to do this, but it's more, those have been more based on like velocity. This is
How
actually
long
measuring
ago did
pressure and
this
power.
how long ago did this device come out? Has it been out for quite a while, or is it something
So
newer
before
or on the
COVID,
market?
it came out I was aware of it just before COVID, so that's almost 3 years ago now.
So it's
That
similar to
kind
a
of
power meter for your propulsion.
It is, and I want to say that this device over here is more recent, the EO Swim Better, and it's kind of got a similar type of concept. And I will talk a little bit more detail in the next few slides. So this is, I believe, an Australian product, and this also it looks almost like a watch.
And that's called
But
the
your hands-
EO Swim Better.
Correct. And your palm would fit through, and this would face towards the water. The watch part would sort of, just like that paddle, face towards the water. So
So
this
the top. So if it were
actually
a
goes
watch,
onto your,
if it were a
right.
watch, the watch face would face towards the water, not towards your palm. Gotcha.
correct, yeah. So these are 2 ways of sort of measuring force in the water. And I guess, you know, what's really interesting about them too is it tracks your hand path, the path of your hand in the water.
So you have the smart paddle, the EO Swim Better, and you've tried both of these and compared and contrast. And
So like I said, I have familiarity with a smart paddle and I own one. I've not bought this or tried this.
the
but I
EO
have
Swim Better,
looked
right?
at-
Remember, we're having audio version here too, Jack. So we need to
The
paint
EO.
the picture with our words at times.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you for the
Yes.
reminder. The next device is a sensor, which you slip in the back of your cap. It's a kind of a square shaped, thin sensor. It's multiple sensor. It may have like 3 or 4 different sensors in it. This product is called Tritonware, and it is kind of, you know, what this does is it measures over 30 metrics. For pool swimmers, they're going to get a lot of different metrics because you're going to be looking at, you know, how hard you're pushing off the wall, your underwater speed. Probably most of those metrics are not that important for the triathletes, but it does do a great job of, you know, looking at your how much you're breathing. It looks at your distance per stroke, your stroke rate, velocity, and it also measures how that changes over time in the pool. It also measures things like intercycle variation, which I think you've talked about a little bit on cycling, how power will vary.
Mhm.
This will kind of look at how your stroke velocity can vary within a cycle, which could be very useful too. This device, you put it in, and you can actually get live data as a coach on deck. This is one that you can use with a whole group. So you could have your whole team, and you could be looking, if you want to look at, you know, how particular individuals performing, you can look at that live. It'll sort of update as they stop. It'll send it to your iPad. Or, you know, for me, I just use this personally, and I also use it with swimmers that I coach online. It just uploads, and you can look at the data at your convenience.
So this is something you use pretty regularly with the swimmers that you coach remotely.
I do, and I use it myself every time I swim, because it's what I think the power with this is it accumulates data, but they have a pretty good AI program that they use that kind of searches through and looks for trends in your data, in your metrics. They've also improved it now to look at your zone. So it'll give you, it'll actually calculate critical speed values. So that's sort of a speed slightly higher than threshold. that you can use to calculate your speed zones. And it'll give you, it'll actually calculate a critical speed for you without doing a test. It'll just look at your data over time, give you a critical speed. I have told them they should actually give you that critical speed. Like they gives you the charts and you'll see the, where you are in your zones, but it doesn't show up, and they are going to do that. So you'll see it as it changes over time. But it's quite nice. I mean, it really, you can get out of it what you want. But with the swimmers that I coach, especially like age groups, I do some consulting with age group swimmers, and you can wear it during a swim meet. And I get race data from these swimmers in a swim meet. Right now, you can't do open water swimming with this, but it has a GPS in it. And at some point you will be able to do that. And if you have that, that'll be pretty exciting, for, if you could throw it in an open water race or triathlon. Because
well, I think what you're saying is important, that you can have all the data in the world, but if there's no one there looking at it, breaking it down, what's the point of having the data, right? So if you have the Smart Paddle, the EO Swim Better, the Triton Wear, the Form goggle, which we should talk about next, you have to have somebody looking at it. Like, how are you using this data to improve?
That is the biggest thing, I think, say with the Smart Paddle and the EO Swim Better, because it takes me a little bit of time to kind of look at that and see if I could, you have to dig, and it's not that easy to extract what you want. The Triton Wear, they're quite clever, and I'll show you a screen in a minute, where it'll evaluate every practice for you. So it'll give you a score. A 75 means you're improving. Below that means you're really not doing much good for yourself. And then above that means you really had a great practice. And it knows, it knows if you're doing a recovery practice, that doesn't mean you're going to get a bad score, but you kind of have to work on technique during recovery and, appropriate type of pacing. And so it evaluates everything for you. So that they've made that super simple. So the swimmers get, the coach can dig deeper, but the swimmer can kind of see if on a day-to-day basis, if they're performing and why, if they don't get a good score, it kind of gives some good suggestions of things to look at. You can break it down. So this, the Triton Wear, I'm a big fan of, but it does, you don't get that feedback when you swim. You get it after you swim, unless a coach is looking on deck. The Form goggles,
it's not real time. So let's go back to Triton Wear for a second. This is not real time,
but not for the swimmer.
User. Not to the
unless
user.
You had a screen on deck, you're not gonna, you know what I mean? So you're not gonna get, if the Form goggles are goggles which have a screen on the inside of them, which will tell you pacing. I use it in conjunction with a heart rate monitor, like the Polar Sense Verity. It'll give you your heart rate and your heart rate zone that you're, working at. And it helps you count. So I mean, the Form goggles are for me, I swim generally 6 to 7 days a week. And a lot of that will be continuous swimming. So when you're doing that kind of stuff, something like this is huge, because it's just this feedback that makes it much more interesting, and you keep in the correct heart rate zone. But even on the days when we're doing like real VO2 sets, people in my group bought these things because I started improving significantly since I've started using it.
The Form goggles.
Yeah, the Form goggles I found on a day-to-day basis with that immediate feedback were very, very beneficial.
Yeah, we just had our 2 p.m. call, which we have every Tuesday with our Tower 26 team. And we were talking to one of our athletes who did Ironman Tulsa last week. And halfway through the swim, he got into this kind of Ironman lull, right? He's a super fit swimmer. He can swim 130 pace all day. But the second loop, he fell into this Ironman lull where he just kind of fell asleep during the swim. And I find I use the Form goggles too when I swim on my own. And I find those, they keep you honest, right? They keep you on the effort. They don't let you, especially in longer swims, thousands, 1500s, when you're doing something straight, you can see that real-time data, and it's you see yourself falling off. You have the fitness, but you just lose that focus. You lose that momentum. And these definitely, exactly what you're saying, help keep you on that effort.
I get my pace per 25, because that's totally. To me, that's how tightly I want to kind of pace things. And you can use the form goggles in open water, and I think you can get a heart rate. That and is going to link to your Garmin watch. And so I do think like you don't get as much information. I don't think you'll get like stroke rate. I think you're kind of a little bit more limited in open water with what you're going to get. You may get pace. And
You can get stroke rate. I'm not sure exactly. I know you can get stroke rate, but yeah, there's a few things you can get, but yeah, it's definitely not all the data that you can get in the pool, but it's things like I was just working on the tether in my backyard. I know, super fun, but the form gives you something to look at. It gives you your stroke rate, so you can at least pay attention to something throughout the straight consistent effort that keeps the effort up. And
that's
then
like
when
that's the spa mode. Is that what you use?
Yeah, totally, exactly.
The spa mode is I think the spa mode and the open water mode are, because I was working with a private client, and I don't know if it's just because of her, whatever Garmin she's using, but we really wanted to use stroke rate during her open water swims, and we have not been able to get her form goggles to show them, to get a screen with that. So it seems to be, I don't know, it could be dependent upon what watch you have, but that's unfortunate. That would be nice to have, but it's in the pool. And I
don't even connect it to a watch.
Just amazing.
Tell her to disconnect it from the watch, and that's all that shows is the stroke rate in open water mode. So we can talk about that offline. But all right, what else? What's the next? You got another slide here? What do we got?
I do. So I was just going to kind of go. I'm just going to kind of go through these in a few slides and see if we can just kind of give people a bit more information and learn a little bit more. But these are the smart paddles, also called TrainSense. The price has gone way up since I bought them, but that's like about $1,000 pretty much, or €1,000. And like I said, it measures like hand force, hand speed, and direction of force. So this is pretty tremendous for us in swimming. We haven't had something like this that I can remember, that maybe people using, multiple cameras and, dots all over the person, they might give you an idea of these things.
It's $1,000 it's $1,000 for the smart paddle.
It's $1,000. Yeah.
So Gerry, we'd have to get 100 people, each shipping $10. That means every 100th day we'll get to use the smart paddle. That's what I would do.
Yeah, it's and what I want to say is that, you do an analysis with these things. And so when I did it, you've kind of got to get it linked up to your app, and they're Bluetooth, and you have your hands out of the water, and then you kind of need to plug in what you're going to do. It's ideal to have someone on deck. I've done it myself, but you kind of have to plug in what you're going to do. They say I'm going to do like 4 200s. You kind of have to have that in the app, and then you can swim, and you have to stop after each on the phone after each swim. So like I find it very good to do a series, because what I like to use these things for is I like to look at the effects of fatigue, like what happens as a swimmer fatigues throughout a set. So generally sets of 150s or 200s, you can kind of see, maybe, that you could see like a difference between force produced between the left and right arms. And then you might see that the right arm was stronger, but that really fades throughout the set. And so you can kind of get them to focus on that. I mean, the one thing it's not going to talk to you, you're not going to get information about drag or propulsion from legs, but we've done lots of studies looking at, pulling with these and also kicking. And I think one of the more interesting results that came out of it was that, with the when you added the legs, we were generating a longer impulse. And so that the impulse is kind of a cool thing in swimming. And it's what it is it's force over time. So you could generate like, you might get a result with a right hand of like 60 Newtons, which would be huge. Like some big guy goes in and he does that. But if he's not applying that force for a very long time, he's not going to go fast. You could have somebody in there generating like 40 Newtons, but holding that pressure for a longer time, and they're going to go a lot faster, like, maybe 20 seconds per 100 faster. So looking at impulse seems to be, and you will get those values in your data when you're done with a set.
So
looking
that's
at
where
the
you're talking about
impulse.
feel for the water. That lower Newton athlete has better feel for the water.
And that's what impulse is, basically. What I've learned is impulse is feel for the water. And when you add the kick, like, why do they have a longer impulse? Well, I think it's because they kind of are able to set up a slightly better catch up in front. They have a little bit more, tension in the body, and they're able to get the hand into position and take a little bit long, they're getting that stroke longer. They're applying force longer. And that's
And
really
randomly enough, we're going to have a swim video analysis later in this episode where we're going to talk about this very thing with AJ, right?
Exactly. And you can see that, like you said, on video. And it's interesting because Gerry has talked about this a lot. Like, why if you threw in a weightlifter, like, who wasn't a very good swimmer, why can't he just swim fast? Because he's so strong. And it's not the force, it's the impulse. It's applying that force over time.
Not the size of the boat, it's the motion of the ocean.
Sort of like that.
Just
And
came up with that.
So Jack, before you go on, if you go back to that other screen, please, there's one, the direction of the force is one of these outputs that is super important, right? Talk about that a little bit.
So thank you, Gerry, for backing me up there. That actually is really neat. So with these paddles, they're sensing pressure, and they can sense pressure in 3 different directions, like vertical, which would be up or down, lateral to the side, and then forward, which means pressing water backwards. And it is fascinating to see these graphs that come out of how this pressure is applied. And I'll show you a couple of these. It'll overlay graphs of lateral, vertical, and forward pressure. And your ideal thing is to generate, the forward pressure is what's going to drive you forward. It's going to give you propulsion. And the lateral, when people kind of move out to the side, but unfortunately it's kind of unavoidable because any kind of change in the pitch of your hand can affect that reading. But what you're going to want to do is try to, get a broader peak with that directional pressure that's going to send you forward. And that's probably
Right.
the one thing you can guess from video. But these things show it to you. So I think, whether it's this paddle that's going to make the difference or paddles that come out from this in the future, that's amazing. What would be neat is if you could get real time in your form goggles and see, if you're generating excess lateral force or not. But at this point, it's only something you can do afterwards and kind of analyze how that progresses during a swim.
So after you get done swimming, then you go to your smartphone or wherever you have this and download the info. So none of this is real time.
So theoretically, your coach could look at it. Really, I'm just going to say no. It's not real time. It's
Okay.
The stuff
Well,
is
just like
going
on a
into
power
the
meter
phone.
on the bike, you don't see your pedal stroke analysis until you break down the data afterwards.
Yeah,
So.
the app that is recording the data from the paddles is different from the website where you're going to go and actually look at the data. So it's
Okay.
not real time. With the Triton wear, as I told you, that is real time. It's just, you'd have to look at your phone.
So where you have Triton, where you have all the swimmers wearing Triton wear, this product would probably be something a coach would buy and then use it with each individual swimmer, as opposed to every swimmer having it. Yeah.
This would be like an analysis.
Yeah.
Yes. So a swimmer could purchase this on their own, and if they kind of knew what they wanted to look for, and you just kind of go in and do sets every once in a while and evaluate your progress. But I would say it's probably more appropriate for like a clinic or a coach.
All right, what do you got next?
Well, I was just going to point out, there have been devices in the past, like a velocity meter, where it's, the swimming, you can look at the velocity, and you'll get a little curve that can overlay with the video, and you can see, you can kind of get an idea of things that are going on, like whether you're generating propulsion or whether propulsion is going up and down, your velocity is varying a lot for arm stroke. But it's a different different output than this. And let me just show you a couple of these curves. So that the propulsive force is green, the lateral force to the side is yellow, and then the vertical force, like if you're pressing down. So what you can see is like a different swimmer will have different profiles. So in this, we're looking at a distance swimmer, and their hand enters, and that they have more of a glide up in front, and then they're going to sort of generate their peaks. Now, this is a good distance swimmer because
Jack, could you, before you go on, could you just qualify a distance swimmer? What does that mean?
so distance swimmer in the pool would be somebody who swims like the 1500, the mile.
Okay, so a
About-
15-minute event,
Yeah.
16-minute event for women, 15 minutes. for men.
Correct. And so they're going to have, in a pool swimmer, this probably would not be an open water swimmer. They would have a less of a glide, higher tempo, but you're going to see that, this more of a sharper peak versus a sprint swimmer where they're going to have this broad peak, but they're going to be generating force all over the place because they're just hammering the water. But as long as you're getting a big, broad green peak pushing forward, pretty much from when the hand enters to the end, you've got a pretty good sprint stroke. What you will see sometimes, though, like these are idealized, you can see where people lose force. Like I've had a sprinter where there was like a camel back here. It was like it would drop because he would sort of, do a quick S shape with his hand. And we took that out and he was able to get this broad peak. So he was losing speed when he was digging because he was just slipping in the water. When you look at a developing swimmer, I mean, here what you'll see is the amount of force pressing down is way in excess from the propulsive force, as is the lateral force. So they're spending they're getting a peak. The peaks are lower, but the amount of propulsive force is significantly lower. So this could be, very useful, but I think you would be able to see a lot of this on a video too. A developing swimmer like this is going to be, the hands are just not going to be moving in a path where they're generating a lot of propulsion and probably not setting up a good catch, more pressing down in the water. Just quickly, and to say that the EO Swim Better can do a lot of this similarly, so I won't go through all this for them, but you can kind of look at, this is a right data for the right hand and data for the left hand. And you can see, and then you can overlay right and left, or different swimmers on these, but the dot is kind of where the hand enters. And then this is kind of the depth of you can look at the depth of the pull. And you could see like you're pulling at two different depths here for like right and left.
So you're tracking each individual hand and where it's traveling through the stroke cycle. Pretty
amazing. Yep. And so this would be an average for the whole 25, but you could look at any particular arm stroke within that.
So you have a graph up there that's showing, different data points of the stroke cycle.
Yes. And it'll show like an average pattern, but you could also look like at individual arm strokes as well within that.
So Jack, on that graph, you have two patterns, or two patterns in two different colors. One in a sort of a light yellow, it looks like, and one in a darker plum color. Yes, on that left graph where you have your cursor at the moment, what is being measured with the yellow chart, yellow graph, yellow outline?
So this is as if you were looking like through a window on a pool.
Yes.
And it's looking at the trajectory of your hand. This is actually my hand. So
so you're looking, are you looking forward or sideways? What's the view of this?
I know it's a little weird the way it's kind of tracking. This is tracking like your hand entering the water at this dot.
Enters
and then it's sliding to depth.
Okay.
And now it's going deeper as I pull through the water. So it's, this is the entry at that dot. This is an idealized hand entry, I guess. So mine, if comparing this swimmer, who is a pretty decent distance swimmer, mine's a little deep. My pull would be a little deep. but the shape is relatively good for the right hand. My
What
left
on
hand,
God's green earth happened to your left hand? Were you?
yeah, right. So I actually
Well,
worked on it
hold
after
on,
this, and it did improve.
hold on. Can we just back
Yeah.
up for a second? Let's go back to that first chart. So you've got the yellow one, which is yours. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah.
And the plum color is another athlete that it's not yours. It's some other.
It's not. It's one of the ones that comes in the program. It's a
Got it.
distance swimmer that they map. You get some data with the program.
Okay. So let me ask a question here.
Yeah.
Where the hand has entered, yours, and where it has exited, you notice it's a narrower gap than where the provided data graph, that person's hand entered at the start there, it exit further away. Is there any value in that piece of data?
There might be, Jerry, but I don't know. I would
Okay.
have to look at that. Yeah.
All right.
But
So now we go to the other.
I'm going to guess that they're pretty good with the data analysis. There probably is something to that.
Okay. So now the other one we have you're sort of this is your left hand.
And it drives way deep really
Yes.
soon.
Yes.
And then pulls back, and the track is shorter. You know what I mean? It's so
On what side do you breathe to?
I breathe to the right.
Okay.
And I'm very right dominant in like.
So this is what it looks like when you're pressing, probably when you're pressing down on the water to breathe. It looks like, I mean, you can see that you can see it in this data, what it looks like to press down on that water as you breathe.
Yeah, I feel like, you know, my catch has always been a little bit weaker on the left arm. So I've spent actually a lot of time working the Vasa trainer and in the water.
What the
with
Vasa trainer doesn't do, unless you turn to breathe on the Vasa trainer,
there's no breathing.
Right.
But
so what you
I
have
can
here,
see it on mirrors and in the video, so I can,
Got
you
it.
know, I get feedback that way. But yeah, I mean, for me, this was certainly eye-opening.
Yeah,
you know,
super
and
interesting.
I'm sure I'm not the only one with
Yeah, that's really
an
interesting.
asymmetry like that in their stroke.
Gerry, get the Tower 26 credit card. We need this.
Yeah, this is it's good. So we're going to compare this now to the EO.
The EO swim better. So it's another wearable. Like we said, it kind of slips over your palm. This is about $800 and also this monthly licensing fee. So with the TrainSense paddle, you don't have a monthly licensing fee, but you do have to pay like every time that you get a certain number of licenses, I guess, with when you buy it, like 20. And when you use up all those, you know, each time you analyze doing a test, you use up one of those licenses, then you have to purchase more, and they're a couple bucks each. But here, you don't have a system like that, but you do have to pay a monthly fee for the app. But it will look at things like stroke rate, total force per stroke. It's very similar, I want to say, you know, the stroke path and hand velocity to the TrainSense paddle. The output actually is, you know, I think a little bit different, and in some ways possibly easier to use once you get used to it. It kind of will show you like how much you're spending, and you know, rather than tracing those graphs, it'll just give you percentages of time that you're gliding and pulling and recovering. And you can get those sort of hand pats that I showed you with the, you know, taking a look at the depth of the hand and the traveling of the hand. So I think their app is pretty good. It would take me a while since I haven't used it to really understand this, but it looks to me like this might be, you know, if an athlete had this, they might be able to interpret it a little easier than the TrainSense data. I was just going to point out, like, you know, we're talking about power and, you know, how hard it is to measure in the water, but the one place you can measure power as a swimmer is on a Vasa erg. And I mean, this is, I actually did this one today. This is like, you know, you can link your power meter, just like your bike, to your computer. And I use Trainer Road, and I write, you know, little practices. Like I do 2 15-minute swims on the Vasa a week and 1 30-minute swim. And you know what your threshold power is. And I tend to do a lot of work at threshold on the Vasa. And this was after swim. And, you can see like your power kind of dropping off because I was a little fatigued. I did a, 4K swim, and then I came in, I did my 15-minute Vasa set. A lot of times I try to reverse that. I'll try to do the Vasa first and then a swim. And I actually like the feeling of swimming after Vasa because I feel very primed and kind of keyed into my stroke. But by mounting a camera on the front of it, I'm able to, keep an eye on my stroke, what it's looking like, at least from the front view. And, I just kind of comparing it here to a photo to a swimmer who's sitting here, Gerry.
You keep that blown up, a life-size version
Oh,
of
yeah,
that photo that you have there.
Gerry's
right
got
in
a
front of you.
beautiful stroke. I want to swim like that. But it's I just find, we have this technology coming out, and I just put this in here to remind us that there are things that have been around for a long time that people probably could benefit from. I find working on technique on land as well as water to be very beneficial for me. And it was part of the way that I kind of tried to work on that left arm issue that I had detected with the train sense paddle.
Yep.
These are the form goggles. And
So can we go back? I want to just,
Oh, yeah.
before you move on to form, regarding this EO. So it measures, it's measuring depth, speed, and force. Is that correct? Those are the three.
It's very
outputs?
similar to what we just talked about.
Okay.
I do believe they even give you impulse data too, which
Okay.
is very valuable. It's
And is it in real time, or this is after the fact also?
after the fact.
Got it. Okay. All right.
And there's a little bit, with the EOS, there's the EO Swim Better. It's, I was just watching on some videos on how to set this up. You kind of have to give it some directional information at the beginning of a swim. So you have to hold your palms up in the direction of that you're going to swim.
Right. I saw
So
that. Yeah.
yeah, I don't understand that. None of that. You don't have to do any of that with the train sense paddles. It
Right.
knows
It's
where
not
it
as
is.
intuitive. Right.
No, so I don't understand why that is, but they don't really go into it. There's obviously some things you have to learn before you use those. And I believe you have to do the same thing with stopping them between sets as well. You may not have to program in a set. It sounds like you could swim at 200, stop it, and then start it again. And not like interface with the app. And that would be different from those train sense paddles.
Okay. All right. Form goggle.
Form goggles. So these, are expensive for goggles. It's $250. Sometimes you can get them on sales, but it's nice that you can link them with a polar heart rate monitor. This is the Polar Verity. You could attach it to your goggle strap, and it talks to the form goggles. I find I like that heart rate information. I find it one of the few times I've ever been able to really use heart rate reliably and efficiently in the pool. It's much more accurate than the wrist heart rate from my watch. And you get this, you get information from form live in your goggles. And when you're done, you upload it, and you have an app with these different tiles. And what you can see is you can see your workout, and it has different strokes in different colors. And it
So
overlays.
this is the upload portion, but in real time, you're actually
Yes.
getting time, distance, pace, calories, heart rate, split time, stroke rate, stroke count, and distance per
Yes.
stroke, right? Those are the metrics.
And
I mean,
whatever.
that's quite a few.
So you can have maybe 3 or 4 different things. Jim may know, but you have to set up you have to set it up like these windows that you're going to see in your goggles. So you could set up, like if you're doing lap swim, you could have it set up in one configuration. You decide what metrics you want it to display, and it'll roll through them on your goggles. So like for mine, I look at time. I want splits. I like the heart rate, and I like the stroke rate. Those are the things. So I have like 4 things that may be the limit.
Yeah, you can see all that stuff after the fact, but you can select a certain few for your swim that you see real time in there.
That's stroke rate. Even if I'm using a tempo trainer, I like to see it, and I find that helpful. Because that personally, I find like I have to kind of work to get my stroke rate going right from the start. So the form goggles are good for me to kind of get right into that off of pushing off the wall, rather than just kind of settling into it. And that actually, from the Triton wear, stroke rate was something that I found that I had to work on to improve. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. But this is, once you're done, you can kind of get all your information about how much you spend in each heart rate zone. So you could see if you swam your practice correctly, your zone 3, zone 4 for like your threshold type of sets. And zone 2 when you're doing zone 2 work. Zone 1 would be real recovery and warm up. So I find both the information you get live and for me personally, the heart rate data is what I look at afterwards.
So this is $250, and then there's also a subscription piece to this, right? $15 a month, where they have some workouts in there, and
yes,
there's a custom workout builder. I mean, you have some other elements to this watch that are
there's an upsell in there.
cool.
You can. Yep. I got that for free, your subscription. I actually like the some of the workouts. Quite frankly,
right.
like if I'm just
when I
doing
said watch, I meant goggles. Sorry. Yes.
The goggles, yeah. Because it'll upload the. Some days I just like, if I have a day where a couple times a week I'm doing like my threshold VO2 max, and I've got a very set practice. Other days I'm just doing longer swims or just something just to kind of get in and move around.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm lacking in motivation, I might pick out one of those workouts.
Mm-hmm.
And it's nice because it just pulls you right through the whole set. It pops up in your goggles. All right, 500, let's go. Boom, you go. And 400 pull, paddles, optionals. It's kind of cool. I like that. I think there's a lot of potential with that. It would be kind of cool if we could do a Tower 26 subscription through that, because that would be quite nice for people. But you don't have to do that. You could just pay the $250 and have the goggles, and it still would upload the results.
All right, let's go on to the next one.
All right, so Triton wear, and this is that tile that you slip in the back of your cap, and it gives you it can provide a coach on deck with live information, but like we said, you're not going to see anything in your goggles, or unless you have your smartphone right next to the deck. It's mostly tracking your workout and your progress. And I think, they talk about focused iterative training. It's this making these small improvements over time. And also, it kind of gets you excited because it's going to give you a grade after your practice and tell you how you did. It's going to measure
that score, right?
It gives you that score. Like there's metrics for underwater, which are for pool swimmers and transitions, talking about your turns. But for just like triathletes, you're going to get your speed over water, stroke count, breath count, stroke rate. It'll measure stroke rate, start, middle, and end of a stroke, your distance per stroke. What we talked about before, intracycle variation, a lot like that variation of power on a bike that you might see. The stroke index is a good measure of efficiency. That's going to look at your speed and your distance per stroke. And then SWALF scores, some people like that, combining time and stroke count. I don't really use that, but apparently there's like 10 sensors in here, and it's going to get all this information as you swim. What I like is they're pretty big into the science of swimming. So they went through and kind of came up with their own criteria for these zones, using all the different, because, USA Swimming, we used to use like EN1, EN2, SB1, as you probably remember some of those things, different energy zones. And then there's the zone 1 through 5, and they kind of combined everything in a way that kind of makes sense. And, they've got several different criteria, like say for zone 1, your heart rate will be between, 60 and 74%. It's going to take a look.
Percent or beats?
I believe that's percent.
Okay.
Because, at the top zone, it's between 96 and 100%.
So 60 to 74%, 74% zone one. Wow. So that's a super fit athlete with well, actually, that may not be. That may be
I
the
don't think
opposite.
so. I think
Somebody in zone one.
60 to 70%, you're, but
That's
anyway, they've got their heart rate criteria. You know,
Okay.
this is like the level of difficulty on a 10-point scale. You know, your percentage of speed, which is kind of similar to us, right? Like, so a threshold would be 83 to 85% effort.
Right.
86 to 94% would be more VO2 max. And then your sprint around 95. So if we're doing those 25s at 95% effort. So it
Right.
kind of aligns, I think, with many different systems. And then you kind of will get that printed out. It'll kind of tell you how much time you spent in each of these zones at the end. Again, it also will track with the heart rate monitor, same heart rate monitor. But I prefer to get like heart rate data live on my, I've got both these things on at the same time, the Form goggles and the Triton. And so the heart rate monitor will only talk to one of those. And I prefer like the live feedback, and the training zones are fine with just based on speed. Like it'll work just off your speed. And these are those scores it'll give you. Like a 73 would mean, you know, it's like meh, like you kind of fell short. And you can take a look, like, where did I fall short? Maybe I was, you know, it'll take a look at your readiness, which is kind of like your recovery. Maybe you weren't recovered for the practice. It'll look how intense you were going, and it also to focus. And that's where to look at the different metrics related to technique. In this case, a 76 score would indicate that you're improving. You know, you're actually going to get better if you keep doing practices like this. I think the highest I've ever gotten is like an 86.
Overachiever, Jack.
Yeah, I had to. They talk a lot about input and output metrics, which I think can be kind of a useful way to think about that. Like, let's say, for example, swimming speed is your output. Well, what inputs are you going to, you know, is going to give you the best improvement in that output? So you can look at, you know, distance per stroke and stroke rate are usually two very good ones. You know, you could look at like intracycle variation, but those
So
two.
What's the input and output then for focus? That's somewhat of a subjective.
So, well, the focus would really break down to, I'm sorry, if you know, I don't have a picture of it, but if you went to the focus link, there'd be underwater, overwater, transitions. You looked in the overwater, you're going to have those 10 or 20 metrics within that, and it's evaluated you on everything: stroke index, you know, your breathing, your
so focus is another way to say technique.
Yeah, it'll look at all different components of your technique and evaluate you relative to yourself and relative to people that are comparable to you. The one thing that's cool about Triton is they're sucking up a ton of data from like all over the world. They have many national teams using this, many triathletes using this, many master swimmers, recreational swimmers, all that they use, and they can kind of compare you to, you know, once you classify yourself as what type of swimmer you are, it can give you an evaluation of how you compare to somebody, you know, within your age and ability level.
Interesting. And this is the Tritonware.
Tritonware. Yeah, it's pretty powerful. I want to say like a lot of, and they won't tell you who's using it, but a lot of the national teams use this, and they pay a little bit more, and they can extract all the data, and they run it into they have data people that process that data. But it's quite powerful, and sometimes they'll do little studies on, you know, different, you know, Olympic level strokes, and it's they have a lot of data to work with where they can really look at swimming and these metrics.
Very cool. And this is this is an output for you.
Yeah, this is me.
So what's interesting,
Right now,
Jack, I just realized you swam 4,000 yards in under an hour, and you did it at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yes,
kudos to you, buddy. Well done.
Man, he's still on this call.
So like this, I did 5 800s, like just, you know, for the heck of it here. But what I did is like I did different paddles for each. it was sort of an off day. So in an 800, I used these weighted paddles that I like to use. They kind of from that Aquavolo company. For me, what I like about those paddles is it really helps me accelerate my hands. You don't go very fast, but you can look at, it's not a very fast 800 and my stroke weight's a little bit lower, but in order to go that speed, I kind of have to really work on acceleration of my hands. Then I switched to paddles and here we're looking at two outputs. We're looking at, time and stroke rate. And then you would look, so this is all the different, this is 800 number 1, 800 number 2, 800 number 3, 800 number 4, 800 number 5. And you could sort of take a look at trends. And what you're seeing is like, obviously the time's getting faster because I'm doing different things during this set. And then the stroke rate goes up. The last 800 was swim. So I had my stroke rate up to, 72 strokes per minute. This was, so just to go through the set, I did one with weighted paddles. Then I used these foam paddles, which are like kickboard material, which I believe helps me work on my catch. Then I worked on just regular paddles. Then I just pulled with no paddles and no buoy and an ankle strap. And then I swam. And that's kind of what I'm sorry, this one was regular. This was the ankle strap, the third one. And then the fourth one was the regular paddles. So it's, I don't know, for me, I go through and I can kind of track different things. And so I find it's kind of fun. Or if you're doing a set of 200s, you can kind of look at how your stroke changes as you fatigue.
Well, it's cool as a coach because you could see which one of these products works, what doesn't work, what's allowing for improvements in your swim. So it's kind of cool to see the data based on each individual product that you're using. So
it's the possibilities are endless. And it's just kind of like if you were working like with a whole pool full of people and you did those your 1,000 time trial and everybody had one of these in, you would know their time, but you would also see what was going on with their stroke over the course of the 1,000. You would also see how they compared to thousands they've done in the past. So I think there's a lot of potential to this product.
And what does this cost? What was the Tritonware cost?
So the Tritonwares cost 200 and something per year. There's like a yearly charge. So it's like $16 a month, I guess is what it comes out to.
Gotcha.
If you do a team, I think you can get it down to $13 a month. I know a lot of teams just build it into the cost of their tuition. It's becoming quite big, I would say, in swimming. A lot of clubs are using it. I think, when I coach a remote athlete and I have them using this, they tell me they had a decent practice. I can look at their times, but I can also really dig into, you can see how chart things improving, like your distance per stroke over time. You could say, hey, over this year, look at your distance per stroke is increased and your stroke index improved. And so I find as a coach, it's very, very useful.
Yep. All right, what do you got next?
So I think that was all the data in terms of my end here.
Gerry, you're too quiet. What are your thoughts? Gerry, what's your thoughts on all this?
Well, let me just also talk about something that's coming up, which I haven't tested, but I've been watching and reading about it and listening to the interviews of this M25 swim lift paddle. That's a collaborative effort between Brenton Ford of Effortless Swimming, Mark Evans, and Jane. I'm quite sure to pronounce her last name, Cappaert. And interesting. It's in the Kickstarter phase right now, and I've looked at the design of it and so on. I'm always a big supporter of coaches, athletes, and scientists, inventors coming up with products because, get products, gadgets, whatever words you want to use. They also provide some stimulation. They provide motivation for athletes and so on. So I'm a big supporter of it. I do want to. When I looked at their data, in fact, or one of their descriptors, I wanted to talk about it a bit, and if they end up listening to this, lend some advice to them if I can find this. Oh gosh, where is it?
So this is the descriptor of the product that you're gonna.
This is the descriptor. Yeah, this is the descriptor of the product that I was challenged a bit with some of the descriptions, and I'm not finding it. Did I send that to you, Jack, or no?
You're
think
muted,
I-
Jack.
Yeah,
You will have.
I see it. I'm seeing it. I found it. Sorry.
Gotcha.
Yeah, go ahead, Jim.
No, go ahead. I was
One of the
ad-libbing.
their claims. One of the cool things about this is these are the claims that the paddle has. It trains the high elbow catch. By the contours of the paddle, it repeatedly rotates the shoulder, placing the forearm, hand, and fingers into the right position. These are all good things. Directing a forward, downward, and slightly inward motion initiated at the shoulder. Just given these claims, it's based on its erg shape. It sort of contours the hand into a natural and perfect position. Raises the elbow by rotating the shoulder. And then they had one other claim, which I'm going to advise removing, rather than putting this out there, because I think when you're going to put products out there, you want to make sure your product's actually going to do what it's saying. And it says it's going to improve body hydrodynamics, resulting in sustainably better body streamlining. I'm hard pressed to think any paddle without some mechanism that is applying, that some mechanism that is talking to other components of your body as in addition to your hand, can actually validate that claim. So, but again, the reason I brought this up is what we have, to answer your question, Jim, we have a number of products now, Jack, coming into the market, or that are in the market, and some coming in that we haven't had before. We've had this sort of stable, unstandard, archaic industry, technology portions of swimming that have been, in my mind, just living in the dark ages for a long time. The pull buoy, the hand paddle, finally a snorkel came around. I mean, it's been pretty basic, while other sports have introduced lots of technology into it, better products and quite a bit of technology. Finally, swimming is starting to catch up. So there's good opportunity there for coaches and for athletes. Now, regarding the products that Jack went over, I want to give a little commentary on it, just a little synopsis. And I enjoyed listening, Jack, to all of those products, of which none, by the way, I've tested other than the Form Goggle. The others I haven't. So they're all super interesting. But I want to relate those now to our audience. This is this coach's view. And I am sure if the inventor of all of these products will challenge me on this. But this is my perspective on placing values on these products. Outside of the Form Goggle, all the others that measure force and pressure, force, and giving you some power outputs, right? These to me are down the food chain for what triathletes should be looking for. In swimming, for our audience, where the majority of athletes are in that 130 to 230 per 100 speed, the metric of force is ladder down as for what these athletes need. They need other inputs or outputs, actually, to better help them, so they can then actually be able to have good value when they used a product that is measuring force and velocity and all these other types of things. So think of our categories: tautness, alignment, propulsion. There's a reason we teach that methodology in the order that we teach it. You can have all the force in the world, and Jack, you referenced this earlier. We can get a bodybuilder to produce a massive amount of force, but with the improper direction and all other variables to it, that person doesn't swim fast, because there are other elements within swimming that are more important. There's a hierarchy of opportunity that one needs to check off first before utilizing these other, these other outputs, right? So although I think these tools are extremely valuable, I think they're the most valuable for competitive swimming or super competitive athletes. So let's triathletes, and let's define that. What's super competitive? In triathlon space, those are swimming 52 minutes or faster for an Ironman, 25 minutes or faster for a half Ironman. That's sort of 1% of the audience. And I'm not saying don't buy these. That's not what I'm saying whatsoever. I think their value is less than it is for the competitive swimmer or competitive coaches or high-end triathlon coaches that are coaching professional triathletes. For others, I think there are other devices that will be of much higher value.
Jack, that was an in-depth analysis. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. A lot of good info there. So, you guys can rewatch and go to those websites if you're interested in any of those products. Let's get to the workout of the episode, Jared. It's about that time. Coaching.tower26.com. It's our first workout of the open water skill building phase. I'm going to bring it up here in case you don't remember what I sent you today. You see that workout, Jared? This is at coaching.tower26.com.
One, it's too blurry and it's too small. So no one is going to be able to read that, unfortunately.
Blurry. Can you see that one?
There you go. That's you go.
Actually, it wasn't blurry and it wasn't small. Got to get those eyes checked on. Yeah. Eat some carrots. All right. What do we got? Warm up.
Whatever you did. Yeah. So this is at the time of the season when we're introducing the elements that are needed and required for open water swimming. So the complexion of our workouts completely change. It's almost as if the things we were working on, yes, we continue with those, yes, but we must add in these new ingredients into our training protocols, because now you get to the specific needs of the triathlete. And what are those needs? Sighting. Jack talked about in our 2 p.m. call, drafting, the ability to transition from swimming being horizontal for X number of minutes or a couple hours, if it's an hour to 2 hours, an Ironman swim, to then being vertical and to run towards your bike. And that run could be 30 seconds to several minutes. So we have a whole bunch of skills that need to be introduced during this training phase. So we did an easy warm up here. Then we got into a secondary portion of our warm up where we had about a 12-minute duration swim, where it ranged from an 800 all the way down to about a 500 for all the levels. Remember, our workouts are written for all levels, for the super elite athletes all the way down to the beginner. So a beginner would be doing a 400 or a 500. The elite athletes would be doing an 800 as an example. And all of it was easy. But what we did, we dove in, or we jumped in at the very beginning of the swim, and then you'd swim a 100, you'd immediately climb out of the pool, standing in an erect position, and then jump back in or dive back in your facility. And you did this for each and every 100. So if you're doing an 800, you would climb out and dive back in or jump back in 8 times. 600, it would be 6 times. And what we're starting to practice here, simulate the heart rate spike that occurs after you get done swimming and you stand up to run, because we all know what that feeling's like. So we have to create an adaptation for it. So that's what that was. We then went into a pull set. And again, in our sessions, we have longer workouts, and we have a way to scale those workouts. So somebody doing a shorter workout, they would actually skip this portion of it. But this was a pulling set that we did. So you go to Jim, Christophe will have this workout up at the website,
we'll open
right?
This workout up for you guys to check out and the swim on your own. So we will we'll open that up after the workout. I mean, after the podcast.
So let's skip this pull segment, since that's wouldn't be needed for the 60-minute workout, which most folks will be doing. We went into our main set. On our main set, with 4 swims, they're approximately 2.5 minutes in duration. So that would be a 200 for some people, maybe a 175, a 150, or even a 100 for others. So we tend to give these sets by for all levels. So 2.5 minutes for this segment of each swim would be a different distance, right, for different athletes of various abilities. And what we wanted on these were progressing effort on each one, 65%, then 75% on number 2, and then concluding all the way up to 85% by the last one. And then we repeated that 2 cycles through. And they were decking up again at each of these. So you would rest while standing. Of course, you start off by diving in, and then you climb out at the end and you rest standing up on the pool deck. Now, of course, starting these off, they're going to be uncomfortable. Heart rate's going to spike. It's going to be difficult climbing out of the pool. But that's all normal, right? Day 1, week 1. After you do this, a handful of times, then the adaptation will occur. So give yourself several sessions before, to allow for adaptation to occur. So this session is just about the introduction of deck ups at the moment, and then we had a easy recovery for the most part after that, because we always do some pulling, by the way, or swimming with a snorkel after we do any sort of open water skill building. So we had an easy 5-minute swim with a snorkel, working on good swim mechanics. Then we concluded the session with a fast 25, and then followed by an easy 25, 6 times through. So basically 12 25s, one easy, one fast, 6 rounds of it. And then we gave a protocol on how to do that. What the emphasis was for those. So to dive into the specifics of it, go to the website, and as you can tell, as Jim was scrolling through there are lots of videos that will demonstrate how to do proper deck-ups. And as we get into, and there's an overhead video here right now with swimming with good form within the proper channels, another video with swimming with a snorkel and so on. So all of it, expertly demonstrated within each workout. You have videos to follow. Each video has instruction in it. And of course, the workout has an audio file at the very beginning that explains within a few minutes the workout and its intent.
So we will open up that workout to everybody, coaching.tower26.com. Check that out there. We have time for one swim video analysis that we're going to go through. Jack, you have that video, right? You have that queued up of AJ. AJ sent in his video to Jim at tower26.com. He put a nice video in there. He wants to know his left shoulder is fatiguing later in swims. AJ Tabak, he is actually a subscriber on the Tower 26 subscription program. But yeah, he sent in this video, he cut it together, he sent it to me via email, and yeah, just give me these videos and we will get them on these shows. What do we got here, Jack?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure my volume. So AJ, he breathes to the left side, and so he's comment is about his left hand. The one thing, immediately I noticed with the left hand is that he's crossing the center line. So this is what Tower 26 we call an alignment issue. So his hand is shooting, right slightly across that center line. And then the next thing I notice is, Gerry mentioned hand tension. So he's got sort of a lack of hand tension. So he's bending the wrist. And there's really not much propulsion.
And that's beneath the surface, right?
Beneath the surface, correct. The left hand really doesn't start to generate any propulsion till he gets to the pull phase, till his hand is kind of parallel with his shoulder. So he doesn't have much of a catch. If we take and generally if somebody has something like that, they may be, we talked about this with those paddles. You may be applying pressure down, which certainly can impact the head of your shoulder. That front part of your stroke should be, there's not a lot of pressure involved. It's positioning. You're really trying to position that hand. That's why we call it the setup phase. And, interesting talking about this technology, the impulse is that applying force over time. It doesn't have to be a lot of force, but as long as some force, directional force is being applied. And I think he's missing a fair amount of that in the front end of his stroke. Would you agree, Gerry?
From the video, it's hard to tell. It's difficult from that position, but definitely there's a lack of tension beneath the surface for sure. The hand, the fact that he's taking so many, AJ's taking so many arm strokes, its cadence is super high, and he's not traveling very far with each stroke. So there's an inefficiency there, and I suspect his hand tension is super low. Yeah, in fact, you can see that in those last 2 strokes. The hand is sort of floppy beneath the surface. He'd lose, there it is again, the wrist is flopping upward. So he's losing tension. There's no, we need to have firm hand tension, guys, from the palm through the wrist into the forearm. The hand needs to be held firmly as opposed to any sort of looseness.
Yeah, I mean, if you back up, watch that right hand as it comes through the water, right, like watch this come through. You watch that hand wiggle as he pulls back. Let it go now. Let's see. Watch the right hand wiggle.
And by
as
the way,
comes through.
Hold there for a second, Jim. If you can back up just a bit, back. Yeah, even a little more. There you go. So this also is occurring on, Jack talked about this occurring with his left hand at the entry, where he's crossing over. Here it's occurring also with the right hand at the entry, where he's, look at that right hand, the fingers for AJ are all the way across his head, and they're towards the left side of his body. So that hand entry is too far. Yeah, exactly. It needs to be more in line with where you're drawing those The right hand needs to enter, Jim, exactly where Jack, you're drawing those yellow vertical lines. So he has that slide across at the entry. Go ahead, Jim. Sorry.
Well, I just want you to watch the hand. The water is having its way with his hand as opposed to the other way around. Watch his hand wiggle here as he starts to pull it back. And it's exactly what you're saying, Gerry. See, it wiggles right there.
Yes, yes.
It means the water is pushing his hand in a direction as opposed to him having the grasp of the water and pulling it back.
Correct. And as he got to the deepest part of his stroke, where his hand's probably a little bit beneath his chest, he started exiting the water. You could tell that all tension was gone. And AJ then started the recovery phase, started being able to extract his hand from the water. So the last portion of his arm stroke, pretty much from chest, little past chest to his hips, he's probably gaining no propulsion, or very, very little.
Swim surgeon,
That's why
did you see that?
Yes. Yeah, sorry.
Jack, you good with all that?
Yes, 100%.
Well, Jack does all of our swim video analysis, Gerry, if you weren't aware. So if you guys want a swim video analysis, write us contact@tower26.com. We'll give you all the protocol to get the video in. Otherwise, try and send me a video. I have a list a mile long of videos that are coming in. So keep sending them. It's awesome. I love it. I love content, baby. Content. What's up, Gerry?
One last thing there. Question for Jack. Jack, are we still in our video analysis providing those scores?
Yes.
Very good. So you get a score for tautness, a score for alignment, and a score for propulsion. Yes, good.
There
So
you
it
go.
tells you
get that in.
where your weaknesses occur within those three categories.
Beautiful. So send us your videos. We'll try and get them on the next podcast. Remember, questions at contact@tower26.com. We'll get to those questions next week. We got a lot of good info here. And yeah, thanks for everything, guys. Gerry, anything else from you?
No, this was a longer podcast for us, but it was super technical, and I was glad to hear Jack's detailed analysis of it, because every so often it's good to geek out a bit, and with this new technology, I think it's important to have have listeners really understand what you're going to be receiving and on what's going to be necessary for them. So Jack, thanks for the complete deep dive in.
You're welcome.
Good info there, Jack. So thanks for joining, guys. Thanks for listening. Thanks for sticking with us through all of this data-driven podcast. For Gerry Rodriguez, Jack Fabian, this is Jim Minsky, the Tower 26 Be Race Ready podcast.